All right, so let's turn our attention back to South Carolina with Alex Joyce. Before we do, though, I want to remind you guys that we're proudly presented by Strength Roofing and Siding. When severe weather strikes, your roof's your home's first line of defense. Storms with high winds, heavy rains, and hail can cause serious damage that isn't always visible from the ground. At Strength Roofing and Siding, we specialize in storm and hail damage, roof repair and restoration across all of central Mississippi and Alabama. We provide fast inspections, expert repairs, and insurance claim support to help you quickly recover and protect your home. A professional assessment from a trusted roofer is essential. With over 45 years of serving Alabama and Mississippi, Strength Roofing and Siding provides expert storm damage repair and replacement. Call right now for your free no-risk assessment at 205-858-9050. We've had Zach on the program for several weeks now. Zach Guffey, you can call him today at 205-858-9050. He'll come out there. He'll talk ball with you. He'll get up on your roof, check out what you got. He'll make sure that you're set for the summer season ahead next summer, but really winter is upon us. So make sure that you want to have all your insulation right. You want to have all your temperature right. He'll make sure that your roof is taken care of. So as he said yesterday on the program, it's shingle roofs, it's metal roofs, it's any kind of roofs. He'll come out there and make sure it's in good shape. And look, just because you call him doesn't mean that you're buying a roof. Call him at 205-858-9050. They'll come out and give you a free inspection. If you don't need a roof, all he'll say is, man, you're looking good for the next couple of years, or whatever needs to happen. He's going to give you an honest assessment. And honesty often is so hard to come by. So make sure you use Strength Roofing and Siding. They'll give you the peace of mind that you deserve and make you feel secure in your home. 205-858-9050. All right, we want to have a lot of fun and get smarter on the program. So we're going out to South Carolina Gamecocks on SI's Alex Joyce. Follow him on the Twitter machine at Alex Joyce on SI, covering the South Carolina Gamecocks. Oh man, you are carrying a lot of weight this year with this terrible football team. Well, bad performance. Maybe they are a good football team. Bad performances. So you're doing the Lord's work covering the Gamecocks for the On SI Network. Good morning, Alex. Thank you so much for your time, and how are you doing?
I'm good, guys. Thank y'all for having me. How are you guys?
Very, very good. Excited about this week. Worried about potential trap issues for Alabama. This looks very similar to a game against a bad Oklahoma team in Norman last year. It looks kind of like a letdown situation against Vanderbilt last season. So a little worried about the game. Seeing sporadic places of talent for South Carolina, but also seeing the bad results. So kind of not so settled on this week's game. But we're very excited to talk to you and to get to Columbia. I'll be over there this weekend. So what are we gonna find out? What are we gonna walk into in Williams-Brice Stadium? I know you got the Fire Mike Shula protest going on. The entire 20-man brigade is out there screaming.
Protest, yeah.
Protest in quotes. Just give us your assessment before we get into anything specific on what's been going on this season. Kind of a 50,000-foot view of the South Carolina Gamecocks.
I think the best way I described it last week was disappointment, because I think you came into this season off a 9-1 season, which was your first time since about like 2017. You had a superstar quarterback people were labeling as a potential top 5 pick. Across from him on the other side of the ball, you had Dylan Stewart, who was projected to be one of the better defensive ends in all of college football. Like, to see what he did as a true freshman, like people were just all over him. But then you come into the season, you're a top 15 team. Like the expectation is to take the next step, win 10 or 11 games, and then go into the playoffs. So since then, it's just kind of all went downhill. And honestly, from the first game, that's when you could kind of see some things there. So Virginia Tech, Kyron Jones is a good player, but for the most part, Virginia Tech is a bad football team. Like, they lost a lot of guys in the transfer portal, either to SEC schools or to the NFL. And so you knew coming in they weren't going to be a great football team, and your offense kind of struggled. And so you give them a pass there because you think, oh, okay, well, in Shane Beamer's time there at South Carolina, they tend to struggle a little bit out of the gate there. But then it's been a constant theme since then, and that's pretty much why they're sitting at 3-4 right now. So I think the best way to describe this football team is just kind of been a disappointment. You can kind of hear that in how I think the players genuinely love playing for Shane Beamer. I do think he's a good football coach, but I think that just from a program from the top down, he mentioned that in his presser this week, like he's disappointed. The players are disappointed. The fans are disappointed. Everybody within that has anything to do with South Carolina, it's just been a disappointing season, knowing where the preseason expectations were coming in.
We're hanging out with Alex Joyce. Alex Joyce on SI on the Twitter machine, talking about Alabama and South Carolina. And Alex, I want to take you to right where you went with Dylan Stewart. I'm looking at the availability report, and I'm not seeing his name. But when I watched the Oklahoma game this past week, he's in and out of the lineup. Basically, it's 3rd and long. I'm getting back out there to rush the passer. What's he been dealing with, and what is his health situation? What are the Alabama tackles going to be facing with Dylan Stewart this coming week?
Yeah, so he went out, believe earlier in that game with a hip flexor injury, and then came back in and just tried to do certain things. Like he went to the locker room, came back, played a play, and then was out again for a little while, and then was sporadically just in and out of the lineup the entire game. I think he was just dealing with a bruise there. He's going to be fine. He's going to be playing in this game. I think that is kind of one of the positives you can find on South Carolina's defense right now is him and then his bookend, Brian Thomas Jr., but both of them have been solid. I don't think Dylan has reached the superstar level that a lot of people around in the media and fans thought he would be at this time, but he's still capable of being that player. Like he's still capable. I still remember last year, I believe it was the game against Kentucky as a true freshman when South Carolina went out and blew them out on the road. He had like 3 guys blocking him at one time and pushed 2 of them back into the quarterback. Like he's still capable of being that player. We just have not seen it in the way that we saw Kyle Kennard for South Carolina last year, who turned those into 11.5 sacks. So I think that's the next evolution into who Dylan Stewart is. I don't know whether it's he's just been dealing with some nagging things, if it's a scheme thing or what it may be. But again, he just hasn't reached those levels yet. He has the talent to. So we'll see if he kind of finishes the season off strong. But I think he's sitting around just under 4 sacks right now.
Sticking with the defense here, obviously South Carolina has a tall task ahead of them facing off against Alabama's 5 deep wide receiver room now at this point. Just really, what do you see or what do you kind of predict their level of success is going to be this weekend facing off against 2 guys that are probably going to be first rounders, maybe a 3rd guy, maybe 4 guys, who knows?
Yeah, I'm still hoping as an Atlanta Falcons fan that Jeremy Bernard just somehow goes under the radar and we can steal him in the 2nd round. I would love to have him in that offense in Atlanta, possibly with a new offensive coordinator, but we'll get to that point later on. But, I think this is by far the best receiving core they will have faced and will face for the rest of the year. I mean, you talk about like you have everybody knows the superstar Ryan Williams because of what he did against Georgia last year. Like that catch still plays in people's mind, going over the top, spin and juke, and people like he's one of the better athletes with the ball in his hand after the catch. Like his ability to stop on a dime, to just run by you, and to cut in different ways that should not be possible for a lot of people. He's awesome. But just from the receiving core in general, this is by far going to be the best thing. Now, for South Carolina side of things, that ends up that tends to be their best defensive part of their team as well. Like their back end of their secondary is 4th in the SEC. They're a very veteran-led secondary, but what has given them problems is really the front 7, because over time the front 7 has not been able to stop the run, and it makes sense because your front 7 has been gutted from last year with the guys going off to the NFL. You've lost 3 defensive linemen just in defensive tackles. You lost Kyle Kennard, who is the SEC leader in sacks, or like tied for it, and you lost 3 linebackers. Like you knew coming into the year that it wasn't going to be the same front 7, and I think that's what's kind of given South Carolina trouble, is because teams now know we can run on them, which is now forcing those defensive backs to step up a little bit, and teams going to go over the top. So that's my concern with this Alabama receiver unit, and especially with Ty Simpson. I know y'all mentioned maybe this is a trap game with how they played against Oklahoma and Vandy last year. You don't have Jalen Milroe at quarterback anymore. You've got what ends up is probably the best quarterback in the country right now, or at least playing like it. Like Ty Simpson is on time. He's efficient. He's doing everything that Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer want to do in this offense. And now you pair that with the talent they have at receiver. I think that can cause a lot of problems for South Carolina, especially as the night goes on, if they're unable to stop the run, if they're unable to stop Jam Miller and those guys.
Absolutely. We're talking to Alex Joyce from South Carolina Gamecocks on SI. You can follow him at Alex Joyce on SI. We look at we should stay on the defensive side of the football, and we look around and see three familiar names in Sean Murphy, Justin Okoronkwo, and Monkel Goodwine. Monkel Goodwine is listed on the injury report as I just had it as probable this coming week. I just like to get your assessment on these three former Alabama players. Obviously, Sean Murphy took a pit stop at Florida State, but Justin Okoronkwo probably would have been on the field a little bit this year for Alabama. Monkel Goodwine definitely would have been in the rotation on the defensive line. So tell us about these three former Alabama players, what you've seen out of them this year, and kind of what your expectation is for them on Saturday.
Of the three, I would say Monkel was probably the most important for South Carolina to get back if they can get him healthy, just because of what they lost on the defensive line. You have Nick Barrett beside him, but you've lost Alex Huntley, who had played a lot of football games for you. You lost Tonka Hemingway, who was a big body in there for you. And so you've lost a lot of guys there. So to get him back as like a consistent player for them is probably the most important. But then when you look at the linebackers, Sean Murphy is the biggest leader in the room right now, as far as like his experience wise, game wise. They've got a guy that they recruited in Fred, who's just an athletic freak, similar to how Justin is. And they've been kind of rotating those guys in. So what I've seen from Justin, he's just showing his athletic profile. He's a good player. He's going to continue to get better. Sean is more the leader in that clubhouse. But again, most important for this defense specifically because of what you've lost on that defensive line. Granted, again, you've got Dylan Stewart on one end and Brian Thomas Jr. on the other, who have played a lot of football together. But in the middle of that defense, they really need Monkel Goodwine here. Again, to be able to stop the run, it's just not something they've been able to do. What are they, 12th in the SEC in stopping the run this year? Somehow finding a way to be worse on offense doing that, running the ball. But he's going to be a big part, and if not, it usually tends to cause problems.
Mentioned the offense there, and that's kind of, I guess, where I want to go next. And I'll ask you about the coaching staff here. Obviously, the rumblings of the Fire Mike Shula protests and things that I don't think really had too great of a turnout there in Columbia. But, you know, the messaging is out there that the fans are not very happy with Mike Shula's performance this year as the offensive coordinator. Is any of that bleeding over?
Call a 2-yard line.
Is any of that bleeding over into the fans? You know, is there any concern, I guess, that Shane Beamer could be on the way out if this season continues to kind of spiral out of control? Is there any concern that he may be looking at that Virginia Tech job? Where does where do things lie with Shane Beamer? Is firing Mike Shula at the end of the year going to buy him another year there in South Carolina?
Yeah, I think that's probably where things are headed, as Mike Shula not being here in 2026. So with Shane specifically, like I think there's more smoke around Twitter and the fan base for that Virginia Tech job. And again, there is ties to it, right? Like his dad was a legendary head coach there. You know, he played there. It's like a reunion of some sorts coming back there, being able to take over the program his father once built. But I do tend to believe him when he came in and said South Carolina's is my dream job. He worked there before he went over to Oklahoma and to Georgia and to Oklahoma and those things. Like I do think he loves being here. And personally to me, I do think the South Carolina job is a much better than the Virginia Tech job. Now they may be at this time more lenient in allowing you to lose games and trying to rebuild a roster that really needs a lot of help over there in Blacksburg. But here in South Carolina, you have a better chance at winning something at least here. And so, he's got talent on the roster, right? You've got a good quarterback. You've got at least talent level, good receivers and things of that nature. But as far as him, I don't foresee this being a hot seat thing for him. If at the end of the year, I think it is something he's probably going to move on from Mike Shula. I think he's bought himself time for how well he started out at the beginning. Then he kind of had a down year in 23 with injuries. And then last year was such a good one. I don't think they would fire him. Even if he were to just go win 4 games this year, I don't think they would fire him. I do think he might go in the hot seat going into 2026, but I don't think they would fire him for that. But that's kind of been his main issue, though, since he's taken the job, whether it be Marcus Satterfield. I mean, Dowell Loggins had a good year at the end of last year. I don't know if that's more on Lenore Sellers just being Lenore Sellers, and we'll touch on him in a second too, but or it's Mike Shula in this case. And Mike Shula's claim to fame was, I coached Cam Newton at the height of his powers. You know, maybe I can do a Lenore Sellers at that same point. It just has not worked. Like the running game looks uncreative. You've got talent in the wide receiver room, but you can't block correctly up front, whether that be an offensive line coach issue or not. You can't do that correctly. Your red zone calls have not been great. Like, it's just one thing after another. And Shane has been willing to make changes. I mean, he did just fire his offensive line coach.
Made a change last week, Jack.
Yeah, like he can do that. Yeah, and he was not happy about that question. But I think he's willing to make changes. I don't know that making an in-season change for your offensive coordinator is probably the right call right now. I think you just kind of bite the bullet and see where you can go from here and trying to get better. But I think changes at that spot need to happen next year, especially if you're going to sell Lenore Sellers coming back in 2026. Because right now, with his talent, we saw Anthony Richardson go there and go top 5 in that draft when I didn't personally think he should. I understood the talent. I know NFL scouts love guys that are big, strong, can run, and they think, oh, well, if we get him here, we can fix him. That hardly ever works out. The only one I can think of in recent memory working out was Josh Allen, and I think the Buffalo Bills are extremely lucky that happened, or they're probably all without jobs right now too. So when it comes to Lenore Sellers, I think he should return to college for another year. I think that it would help him as a passer. I think it would help him as leading an offense. But if you're going to convince him of doing that, I don't think it's going to be with Mike Shula calling plays again. And so I think that you're going to have to just kind of revamp things offensively. I think that's where it's going to go in the offseason.
So that's where we'll go next then, is as I'll ask you about Sellers, because obviously this season has not quite panned out the way that many people expected it to for him. But I'm not sure if it's exactly his fault for a lot of the reasons you just laid out. The offensive coaching staff has struggled. The offensive line has looked bad. The receivers haven't really given him a ton of help. So, where do you fall with Sellers as far as, what are the steps to maybe fixing what has happened this season? Or where do you think he is as a quarterback? Has he regressed this year? Or where do you kind of fall with him?
I don't know that I see regression as much. I think that he's just trying to play Superman ball right now. And so, like, I think that you have an offensive line that has been banged up, but even when they were healthy, wasn't super great. Now you get Nolan Hay and Marquis Anderson back, which has been good. But specifically about him, like, I think he's holding on to the ball a little too long at times because he's trying to make a big play downfield. And when you're down multiple scores in a game and have a running game that's really been non-existent for most of the season, you're going to, and you know that, like, you've been able to break. To me, he's the best quarterback I've seen in the last 3 to 4 years that's able to get out of sacks and make plays downfield. Like, his base is so strong and he's very fast. He's the best player South Carolina has on offense with the ball in his hand every time, which is why they give him so many options. And that can go back to play calling, but he needs to have 10 quarterback design runs every single game. I don't mean snapping the ball, play breaks down, then you run. That's on top of things. I mean quarterback draws. I mean in the read option game, like, he needs to be carrying the ball because he's by far your best player. And I know you have another 5-star in Nick Harper on the outside of that, but at this point, unless you're throwing a go ball to Nick, it's not really like he's not a real good route runner in a lot. So with Sellers, like, he has. Basically, they've been asking him to play Superman ball, and it's just been tough because defenses know you're going to have to do that. And Alabama's coming in with possibly the best defensive back room they're going to face all year. So how are you expected to throw on that when you haven't been able to throw on other teams this season? And if you're going to go against another good offensive or defensive line that's going to come after you, now you're going to have to try. I think he's just going to have to play Superman ball this entire year to try and make up for some of the offensive mistakes that's going on right now.
We're hanging out with Alex Joyce. And Alex, I really appreciate your time. Make sure you guys go follow him at Alex Joyce on SI, covering the South Carolina Gamecocks for the On SI network. Let's move up front a little bit more specifically. You mentioned the offensive lineman that South Carolina is getting back. I'd like for you just kind of assess the offensive line, because I just see lots of missed assignments, not so much tough, not so tough blocking up front. But I'd like to also take you over to the stat sheet. You mentioned the poor running game. Alabama and South Carolina are neighbors in both categories. Running the football, South Carolina 106 yards a game, last in the conference. Alabama 125 yards a game, second to last in the conference, 14th. But then defensively, Alabama 13th in the conference, stopping the run at 154. South Carolina 12th in the conference at 150. Is that where this game is going to be? If South Carolina can get its running game going against, Alabama hasn't been great against stopping the run run either. Take us into this offensive line, what it means to get these two guys back more specifically, and just kind of all the shuffling that's been going on up front in front of Lenoris.
Yeah, I think it may help to an extent to build depth. I don't think that's how you want to build depth because of how the injuries they'd face and how that's happened. But I think it has built up a little bit of depth. But you are getting Nolan Hay back, who is your starting center, which is huge because Boaz Stanley has been playing in that role. I think he's better suited to play the guard. So getting him to switch over to guard and having Nolan Hay back there. Marquis, getting him, he's an experienced player, getting him back at the guard position. Now you have him and Boaz there. I think the biggest loss is Casey Henry and at right tackle. So he's going to be out for the year. He's not coming back in this game. He won't be back according to Shane Beamer for the rest of the year. But he now you're going to have Tree Babalade, who's been in the program for a while. He was left tackle before Josiah Thompson came in last year and took over that position. But just as a unit, I think you're just getting more talent in the room, which can help. But South Carolina's problems on the offensive line and what kind of led to the firing of Lonnie Teasley, as you mentioned it, misassignments, but also penalties on offense. Like that line has having a lot of pre-snap penalties that has caused this offense to move back, and an offense that is already struggling, moving backwards is never good. So because you can't get out, you're basically a death sentence as soon as 1st and 10 happens. You go to 1st and 15, you might as well just punt the ball because they are barely struggling to get 1st and 10 after your opening drive starts. So, and then when you go to the running backs, Roswell Faison is a good running back as far as having the ball in his hands. I don't know that he's a great pass blocker. So that's why they've been trying to do things with Matthew Fuller or getting Jawan Howell in there. But your best runner still is Lenore Sellers. So your best opportunity is still to have him with the ball in your hand. So if you're talking about running back specifically, I would take Jam Miller clearly as the best running back in this game. Like I have a lot of respect for Jam. I love watching Jam play. I know he's hurt earlier in the year. Maybe that's why some of the stats kind of go down there for Alabama, but he's a really good player. I would probably take him if I'm just kind of getting an advantage of one of the two teams. But I think both teams are probably going to be able to run the ball a little bit, but it's the pass game that I'm really looking at. And I think that's where the clear advantage is for Alabama.
So in that pass game, I do want to ask you about South Carolina's pass game, the receiver room specifically with Lenoris there. With we mentioned Nick Harbor just a bit, maybe being kind of only a go ball guy, and I think me and Joe had kind of said the same thing before we even brought you on here. Jaden Sellers, that relationship there, is that you mentioned Lenoris maybe coming back for another year. Is that something that is probably potentially very likely going to play into that decision at all? That relationship there, that quarterback to receiver connection, is that something that maybe hasn't quite developed the way you wanted it to this season, but projecting a bit, if you can get Lenoris back, is that something that you're watching for maybe being a prime time connection?
It could be. They got a lot of work. Like he's coming into he wasn't like he's a 3-star recruit. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, we've seen many 3-stars become superstars. Like that doesn't mean you can't be that player. But when you're just looking at recruiting rankings, he's a true freshman, so he's behind Nick Harbor, Mazio Bennett Jr., Vandrevius Jacobs. Like he's just not at the top of the lineup yet. So he had a good game, or at least got some more opportunities in this last couple games that he's played so far. And maybe that'll continue going on forward. As far as, Lenore staying, I'm sure that might play a part, but I don't know that it's going to be the end all be all for him. Whether that's, if he gets a good grade back in the NFL, like if they give him a 1st round grade, he's gone. Because and why wouldn't you be, right? Like that's guaranteed money. And especially in the NFL where they call it not for long league, like you're there for 3.5 years. But if you're a high 1st round draft pick, you automatically get more chances than anybody else does, especially when you're a high 1st round draft pick and you have the talent level that Lenore Sellers does. So if he gets like a top 15 grade, I don't know why he would come back. And I don't think he would. Like I think that his agent and his team would say, let's just go to the NFL and let's go from there. But I just think it's just going to have to be a sit-down conversation of the direction of this football team, where they're going, is it going to be Mike Shula? If it is going to be Mike Shula, how are those things going to be different? I think before the season, if I remember correctly, he had like an $8 million, at least it was reported, an $8 million NIL offer to jump in the portal. So if that comes back, and then I'm not saying it's Ohio State, it's not Ohio State, they've got Julian Sand, they're good. But if you're telling me a team like Ohio State with Ryan Day with those weapons is offering you that much money, and you're like, okay, I'm coming back to college. How do I want to develop? Well, do I want to stay at South Carolina with Mike Shula and an offense that hasn't been created and has been very predictable and is scoring 13 points per game against SEC opponents this year. Do I really want to subject myself to that, running around, possibly getting injured? Or am I going to go over here where I know I'm going to get developed? I know I'm going to play in nationally televised games every week, and I have all these weapons to throw to. So I think that's what, in terms of him specifically, if you're going to make a decision on when you're coming back or not, is one, going to be what your grade is from the NFL draft. And then two, I need to have these clear, answers of what's going to happen with this offense, and then look from there. But with Jaden, yeah, I think he and his brother should build a good connection this year. Like at this point in the season, you're 3-4. The playoff is clearly had the picture. Right now, you're fighting for a bowl game. I mean, you've got Alabama this week. You got a bye week, and you got Texas A&M, Coastal, and Clemson. Like right now, the outlook is you're not making a bowl game. Because like if you're a betting man, I would put the house on you not making a bowl game, especially if you lose this week. Now, if you win this week, maybe all that can change. I don't foresee that happening. But if you do win like that, that's where it starts. But right now, you've got a murderer's row of a schedule and an offense that is looking for so many answers. So, yeah, make him happy by putting Jaden in there. Maybe they can make some plays together as brothers. But I don't know that that's going to weigh in totally too much into that situation later on.
All right, let's start wrapping it up with Alex Joyce, South Carolina Gamecocks on SI. We're going to be over there on Saturday, 2:30, 3:30 Eastern. Alex, photos that I saw was of a not so full Williams-Brice Stadium. That's expected to change this weekend as it's homecoming. Tell me about the environment. I grew up as a Georgia fan. So I grew up as the Georgia-South Carolina game being always kind of dangerous for Georgia, going over to Williams-Brice Stadium in a really hot early season matchup. So I'm kind of I'm excited to see Williams-Brice Stadium for the first time and hear Sandstorm over the loudspeakers. I've been asking the players about Sandstorm throughout the week, and they said, "Oh, we've been playing it. Oh, it's okay. I'm not really a techno guy. We'll see." What's your thoughts on Sandstorm, the environment, and just kind of what it's going to be like on Saturday for the fans?
Yeah, I still think Williams-Brice Stadium is one of the more underrated stadiums in the SEC. Like I do think that when that crowd is hopping, it's going crazy, and especially if the game's like close in the fourth quarter or they're winning by a big margin. I mean, I don't know if you guys are going to be in the press box this week, if you're going to be on the ground. If you're in the press box when they're doing Sandstorm, you can feel the press box move. Like it bounces as you're up there because of how crazy it is. It's a lot of fun, and the environment's really, really cool. But you're going to have to keep them engaged to keep that going on the entire game. Like if it was Ole Miss last year when Lane Kiffin came in and basically dog walked them like through a tune of like 28-3 or 28-7, something like that. But you can take the crowd out if you're dominating them. But if that game is close, that crowd's going to play a part in it. And I think that's what you call the Willie B magic, right? Like that's what we saw. You mentioned Georgia. Like I grew up a Georgia fan. I graduated from Georgia. That was always a game, especially like in 2011, like the Steve Spurrier, Connor Shaw years where I hated playing South Carolina because I knew how good of a team that was. And then having to go on the road and play them. When they're good, they're hyping there. So if you can't take them out of the game early, they're going to play a factor in this one, and give them credit. Even when they're bad, they're still loving their football team. And I love that. I love not to see just whole empty crowds and 30,000 people there instead of 80, 90,000 people there. So it's a lot of fun. They're just going to have to keep it close to make sure. Because if you go into halftime down 27-10, it's not going to be the same as it would be if you're 17-10, maybe 14-7, something like that, because they know you're going to be hyped up for the second half.
Well, Tuscaloosa hasn't been over there since, what was it, 2019? So as we head over there this weekend, what sort of we like to eat, we like to have a good time. What will Alabama fans be looking to do? What would you suggest we have a meal or see a site, or what's important to do in Columbia to maximize our weekend?
Well, tailgating is always fun. So if you can jump on a tailgate somewhere, that'd be great. You just missed the state fair, which was last week, which was it's kind of terrible. I mean, that's terrible in the sense that you missed it. Like that, the state fair is fun. It's a good time out there. But yeah, man. I mean, it's your typical college scene in the SEC. If you like to have a few drinks, there's a lot of good bars down there. There's a lot of good eating down there. It's just good Southern food, and I mean, even in stadium, they take care of you. They're well there too. So I would just get there early and have fun and relax and have, if the drinking is your thing, have a few drinks. If not, get you a Coke and enjoy the stadium, the atmosphere. I mean, South Carolina fans are very nice. They've been welcoming to a guy that's been a Georgia fan all his life. So it's going to be a fun time.
Well, he's Alex Joyce. You can follow him at Alex Joyce on SI, writing for South Carolina Gamecocks on SI. Alex, we'll leave you the last word. Maybe if you want to throw a prediction in here, it's okay. What are your final thoughts as we go into the game this weekend?
Yeah, I'm not sure about like my score there yet. I do think Alabama wins, and I do think Alabama covers. Like right now, they're 12.5-point favorites on FanDuel, so I do think they're going to come. It's probably going to be. See, I just think in this, because of how talented Alabama is and how South Carolina has struggled, I think the dam is just going to break at some point. So it's probably South Carolina's averaging 13 points a game on defense. Can they get to 14? Can they get to 17? I don't know. I'm more thinking maybe somewhere in the 30 to 13 range, maybe 33, 14, something like that. But it's like I said last week when I was talking to the guys over through the keyhole for the Oklahoma game, is for an offense that is trying to find rhythm, doing that against the Oklahoma defense is not really going to be helpful. And in the same way, this week, though, Oklahoma probably has a better defensive line than Alabama does. That secondary is just as good, if not better. And I think that, especially with the talent that Alabama has in the back end. So I think that if you're struggling passing the ball and you can't run the ball, it's not going to be a pretty game. So, to give you kind of just the summation here, I do think Alabama wins, and I do think they cover that 12.5-point spread.
Alex Joyce, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to meet you, get to know you. We'll see you on Saturday. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.